Hi, this is Kurt Kopacik at Vermeer Southeast in Marietta, Georgia, and today we're going to talk about the Vermeer PTX40 and specifically the controls with this wireless remote. Before we get started, everything we're going to talk about is in the operator's manual. We're going to give kind of a quick rundown, but thorough in-depth instructions are inside this manual, inside the box. So make sure you refer to that when you've got any questions. First thing I want to touch on is the lithium-ion rechargeable battery that's in this wireless remote. So the way you take the battery out, just put your fingers behind it and push it against the springs and it'll pop right out. And it goes in the charger the same way. This is just like the battery in your cell phone in that you don't want to let it get all the way dead. I would recommend at the end of every day sticking it in the charger. It does charge when the machine is off, the key is off, it will charge. And the charger is located right here inside the console. You've got the charger here, and there's a cord that runs around to a 12-volt outlet right down here. So when you stick that battery in there, you'll get the green light comes on that recognizes the battery, and then the light will go red to let you know that it is charging. When it's fully charged, it will go back to green. All right, now let's talk about the buttons and the controls on the remote. So we're going to grab the battery out of the charger. We're going to stick it into the wireless remote. All right, so I've got the key on the machine turned on, so that way the machine will interact with the remote. We're going to hold down our power button. The remote's going to turn on, and it's going to prompt you to enter the code. The code is the same for all the remotes, and it's just 1, 2, 3, and you'll see the numbers down here. So 1, 2, 3, and you hear that horn chirp. That means the remote is now in control of the machine. So let's go over these joysticks and buttons here. This is going to be your ground drive controls. So if you push it up, the machine's going to go forward or in the direction of the trencher. If you pull it back, the machine's going to go in reverse towards the direction of the plow. So when we're plowing, we're actually going to push this up, and plowing is going to be in the forward motion. The other joystick on the right over here is going to control either your trencher or your plow up and down, depending on which function you've got selected. Moving on to your buttons down here. This button, the top button on either side, is your operator's presence, and we'll come back to that in a minute. This basically is just telling the machine that you've got control of the remote. This bottom button here on the left will stop your ground drive when you're in the cruise control or the auto creep mode. And this bottom button on the right will stop all your hydraulic functions. Your ground drive, your plow and trencher. If you push that, it'll stop all your hydraulic functions when you're in the cruise control or auto creep mode. So continuing on this first row, we've got our power button. These buttons right here, the up and down, will toggle you through your gauges. So right now you can see we've got voltage and we've got our fuel level. If you push the up and down button, it'll just slowly take you through the other options you've got available to you. Oil pressure, coolant temp, things like that. This is going to be a menu button, which will take you into some of the menu options available. That's going to be your enter button if you want to select one. It's just a little horn, chirp your horn. This is going to be the stop. So if you're running the machine remotely and you need to shut the engine down, you can push that stop button. This first control right here, this is your auto creep or your cruise control. And you can either repeatedly tap this or you can tap and hold, and that's going to increase your ground drive speed when you want it to maintain it in the cruise control. The bottom button, same thing. You can either tap it repeatedly or tap and hold, and that will decrease your ground drive speed. That's going to be your throttle up, throttle down. And these two buttons here are similar. They work similar to this one, but these control your attachment speed. So when you start plowing and you want to increase your plow shaker speed, you can tap and hold or repeatedly tap to increase your plow speed or your trencher speed. And the bottom button tap and hold or repeatedly tap to decrease your plow shaker speed or your trencher chain speed. Last two buttons up here, this is your attachment select. So right now you can see we're in the plow mode. If I was to push this button, it would change this picture to a trencher. And now my attachment is going to operate the trencher, and this up and down will raise and lower the trencher boom instead of the plow. And finally, this button right here is your porta bore. So when you want to do a short bore, you'll hold that button down and it will operate the porta bore motor on the front of the machine. All right, so now we're ready to get into the plowing and trenching operations. So we've got the machine cranked up, we've got the code entered, so the remote is in control of the machine. When I get ready to plow, I'm gonna take the right joystick, I'm gonna push it up to get my plow down to the depth I want. Now to get my shaker engaged, I go over to here to my attachment control button, and if I push my button, you can see it's gonna prompt you to reset the controls. This is where the machine's got a safety built in that you have got to confirm to the machine that you're in control of the remote. And the way you do that is these operator's presence buttons, either one of these. So when I push the button, or when I push and hold, either one, you'll see this timer pop up on the top. You've got a 10-second delay from the time you push the button until you have to have some other type of interaction with the machine. That's a safety feature so that when you're plowing, the machine doesn't just run off without you. It requires some type of input every 10 seconds when you're plowing. So when you get ready to plow, you'll hit your operator's presence, and now I can come to my attachment control and I can start tapping, or I can tap and hold, and it starts my plow shaking. Now I can lower my blade into the ground and get ready to plow. Now once I get my plow blade down in the ground, two ways to get the tractor to move. You can use the joystick and move it manually, or the cruise control or auto creep works the same way. You can tap and hold or repeatedly tap, and that will get the machine moving ahead. You'll see the timer starting to count down. The button chirps to warn you that it hasn't seen any action from you on the remote, and that gives you about a 2-second warning to where you've got to do something with the remote. Either push the operator's button, throttle up, change your speeds, something to prove that you're in control of the machine. If it times out, like it just did, because there was no control of the remote, you'll see this little symbol pop up here, this little R symbol, and that is a resume button, and you can see it just disappeared. When the machine times out, you've got 30 seconds if you want to automatically resume the last settings you had. Very similar to the cruise control on your vehicle. You can hit the resume button and it will go back to the last set speed. But once that little R and the asterisk disappears, now that memory is erased. All right, now let's run through that all one time. So get ready to plow, hit my operator's presence button. I'm going to start my plow. I'll idle up to wherever I want. I'll get my plow depth set where I want to. And then I'll increase my ground drive speed. Now I can start plowing. Now if I want to stop my forward motion, I can just hit this button. If I want to stop all hydraulics, I can hit this button. So that'll stop all hydraulics. There's my resume. So if I'm ready to resume my last settings, what I'll do is I'll hold down one of the operator's presence and I'll tap the other. And the machine goes back to where it was previously set at. Now when we get ready to trench, there's one added step, and you will see somewhere inside the machine, either in the glove box here or maybe inside the manual box, there'll be this little gray tether. Now to operate the trencher, you've got to take this tether cord, and on the back of the remote, you've got to plug it in here and see how the lines line up. And the same right down here, just like that. The reason we have the tether is so that we can maintain a safe distance between the operator and the chain. So now I'm tethered to it. Now I can switch my function over to the trencher. I push my attachment select button, and you see my picture changes to the trencher chain. Now this joystick and this control will operate the trencher boom up and down and the trencher chain. So when we're getting ready to trench, we'll push this, and that will lower my boom down to the ground, and I'll hit my operator's presence, and now I can increase my trencher chain speed. Now trenching is going to go in the opposite direction, so we will want to use this button to make the machine go in the direction which it trenches. All right, let's talk about running the portabore attachment. So the attachment is located on the front of the machine by the trencher. The universal joint is up here on the toolbox. So the universal joint is going to work just like a PTO shaft. You're going to pull that back, and it's going to slide on the shaft right down here. And then the other end is going to be used to snap into your boring rods. So when we get ready to bore, all we have to do is hold our button right here, and it will start the motor turning. So we can hold our boring button down, and then we can use our forward and backwards on the joystick or on the cruise control. All right, a couple other advanced features built into this remote. There might be the case from time to time where you get in a work environment where there's interference, either due to a strong Wi-Fi signal or some close power in the area. If you're in a spot where the remote control is constantly disconnecting from the machine and it's asking you to repeatedly enter the code 1, 2, 3 over and over again, you can actually change the channel that the remote is communicating with the machine on, and we'll show you that right here. To get into this menu, you're going to hold down the power button and the menu button for about 2 seconds each at the same time, and we'll take you into this menu, and you're going to go down to the next channel button and hit enter, and it will switch over to the next channel, and then it will prompt you to enter the code again. 1, 2, 3. Now it's just changed from the previous channel to hopefully a cleaner channel with less interference. There's 4 channels for you to go through and to select one that is clear of the interference that's on your job site. Back in that same menu, a couple of advanced features. Again, hold power and menu to get in there. You can hit your down arrow. The backlight, that's where you turn your backlight for your remote on or off. And then if the contrast should ever be too dark or too light, here's where you would change that contrast on the remote screen. And go down to your exit and exit out. When you're running the portabore, your forward and reverse function on the boring attachment is controlled right here on the console. You just take the switch and you pull it out and flip it down into the reverse if you're backing out. But when you're boring out, you'll want to have it in that forward position. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about are these switches down inside the toolbox here. These switches would be used for the case of where you might lose your remote gets damaged or broken, your battery will not take a charge. These are what we call limp switches. So ground drive forward and backwards, your steering, this will raise and lower your trencher or your plow, and this will select either your trencher or your plow. These switches are designed to use basically just to get the machine back on the trailer to where you can get it into the shop. You will have to control them right here by the machine, but your ground drive speed is limited to very slow since you're going to be controlling them from a close proximity to the machine. And if you do happen to use these switches, the remote will not control the machine again until you cycle the engine off and the key off and then come back on. One final thing on the remote is your battery level in the remote control. So when you go to power the remote off, you hold down the power button, you'll see the remote control battery level on the bottom right there. So this one is about 50%. And then, again, just a quick reminder, everything we've talked about is in this manual. The Vermeer factory does a great job of getting a manual that's easy to read and easy to follow. So if you have any questions, consult this manual. Chances are the answer you need is going to be inside either here or one of the other manuals provided with the machine.